Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm Ko, joined as always by Brax, and today we're gonna have some special discussion actually. We're gonna deviate
creative
a little bit.
kind of creative discussion.
Yeah, let's call it a creative discussion. Actually, that's pretty accurate. We're gonna deviate from our usual topic of Vikings in video games, and we're gonna talk about a passion that we both have, and actually the starting point of where we met. As we explained in earlier episodes of the podcast, we did meet in World of Warcraft, and it is not our first MMO, and it will not be our last one. And since we both share the passion for MMORPGs, and we have played a lot of them, we're gonna talk about that today. But before, a few things first. Brax actually achieved something recently which is very well for him, and I wish him all the best on his little journey there. But if you could share really quickly what it is and what you're currently doing, that would be great.
So the thing is, I've been working for the past 2 years on filmmaking and photography, basically, like we just said in a couple of previous, I think it was the first episode. So I was picking up an old passion of mine that I discovered like 2 years ago. I say old passion because I didn't actually know that I was, interested in doing that like for a living or whatever, because, it came much later. But there were things in the past that basically were like, man, I loved that since I was a little boy, and it kind of connected 2 years ago. And it's like, oh, I want to do this, I want to go back to the stuff that I really enjoyed when I was a kid. So yeah, I came to the point where I'm actually starting to open up my own company, working on all of these things for clients, like commercial videos or videos in general. I actually talked to a guy today that is making vlogs, and he wants to implement my kind of thinking into his work. I mean, and I think it's his wife as well. They're both in vlogs. It's like a van life kind of thing. And they gave me a couple of vids to look at, and I put some input into that. And they are really interested in working with me on that as well. So it's kind of, it's a broad topic. But since I'm a game nerd as well, right? I'm also learning Unreal Engine, so that's going to be part of the business as well. So that's going to be really interesting in the next couple of months to see how it will all develop. And that was one of the things why we were so busy lately as well. So.
True. I mean, we did have some issues being regular on that note, simply because I do have the time, but you do work a lot more than I do, so being consistent there is kind of became a bit of a problem. Not really a problem, it became sort of a thing we have to manage. And since it's just a hobby of ours, and we don't really want to prioritize it over actual work that earns money, we just said, okay, we try to do that as often as we can, but simply because you're getting a lot more busier these days, because you have to earn money somehow, see that as an official, like, we're gonna try to make the podcast episodes as often as possible, but as soon as other stuff becomes a higher priority, we just have to set the episodes back and be like, okay, we just be reasonable at this point and say, okay, we don't earn money with this, we never will, that is not our intention. And so whenever Rex gets busy with his actual work or I'm busy with my studies, we're just gonna dial it down and say, okay, we make an announcement, podcast episodes will be delayed, we can make one on this day, just announce it, say, okay, at least we hope you understand. I don't think it's unreasonable to handle it like that. So just so you're aware of all of it, we're not ignoring the podcast. We're not is forsaking a good word? Forsake the podcast.
No, that's not gonna happen. I think it's more of a postponing kind of thing.
Postponing is a good word. That was the one I'm looking for.
Yeah, so basically, if anything happens like this, it's probably gonna be, we're gonna be doing it at least a day or two later. In the worst case scenario, next week, but it's still gonna be coming out. It's not gonna be stopping, and for me, for example, I'm at the start of my business. I mean, it's starting to grow, it's starting to develop, and the thing is, it's just the starting point of all of it is just chaos. It's pure chaos until I figure out, the scheduling, everything else. And when that's done, and I start working and I start scheduling stuff, it's going to be much easier to do other things like the podcast. And also I will be picking up my YouTube again, and this time it will be on a regular basis because I have a lot to say, and it's gonna be like my own little creative output as well. So yeah, that's all in the books as a plan, so that's kind of going to be coming, all of it, and probably still need to talk to you about it, but I have a lot of ideas for the podcast as well, and the YouTube channel that we have the podcast on. So there's going to be a lot of good stuff and interesting stuff coming in because, since I'm working on this job, I have like tons of ideas that I'm writing down, that I'm going to either implement, or there are just ideas that I need to develop as well. So it gets better through time, and loads of these ideas are actually for the podcast. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Good. So back to our special.
Yeah.
You did once mention how many MMORPGs you played and which one, but that was in a moment where I did not really pay attention to every single game you mentioned. So making an extensive list of every MMO that you ever touched might be way too much, because if I would go on like that, it would be I could fill an hour with that alone. So that isn't really the point.
100%. I mean, there's a lot of MMOs out there, and I tried, a lot of stuff, and I probably will not remember all of them. But I did remember one that we talked about when this happened. It was like, it also shocked you, because I don't think you actually knew that I know that it exists. Actually, that it existed or whatever. I don't know if it's still a thing. Alods.
Oh, Alods Online. Oh, boy.
Alods Online's one of them. Yeah, that was like a couple of years back. It's actually, funny enough, it's WoW related, because
it's
the guild that again WoW related. Because back then I think the guild was failing a little bit and people were leaving, or I don't know which expansion exactly it was back then, but I remember some guys just saying, this game Alods is such a good game, you should try it. I think they actually, it's Russian but it's good.
Yeah, it is Russian.
Joking.
It's true.
They were joking a little bit, so and I was like, okay, sure, why the hell not? And I played it probably 3 days, 4 days or something like that. I was like, nope, that's not something that I want to play. So yeah, I tried everything, like more cartoony kind of thing, more with better graphics, for example, like the what's it called again? Elder Scrolls Online, for
Yeah.
example, right? It's not as cartoony, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. I just, being a noob in the game, it was like there was a lot of stuff to learn. And it was a different kind of style, so it was, I was just going along and killing everything and not realizing I'm in a high level zone, which happens, But yeah, there was a lot of games. I mean, if I go down the list, it's gonna take a while,
Yeah,
to go
probably.
through all of it.
So what my idea actually is, there are a few key points that every player looks at and decides if it's good or not, and it's really easy to determine those points. Graphics, for example, the graphic style in general is one thing. Do you like the setting? I mean, you have high fantasy settings like Elder Scrolls Online. You can go into sci-fi and be Star Wars: The Old Republic. You can have a sandbox MMO in those as well, which can have completely different styles. But that's not what keeps people playing. To quote a YouTuber called Angry Joe, who does a lot of reviews, really extensive reviews of games, did a review on Guild Wars 2 when it came out. And what he said is, what keeps people playing is not the graphics, not the content, not the community. All of that doesn't matter. It's the gameplay. If the gameplay isn't satisfying, why keep playing it? And I do agree on that to a certain extent. So pinpointing all those different aspects that make an MMO good or bad is really easy. It's just an objective list. You basically go down and determine, okay, I like that, I don't like that. So let's just go through that list of pinpoints, and with all the games we have played, we don't go through every game. I'm just gonna say, okay, if I name you, or if I ask you, what is the best MMORPG that you played, graphics-wise, what would be your pick and why?
Graphics-wise, the best MMORPG, that would probably be Elder Scrolls for me.
Okay.
I mean, it's the whole setting of it, the extensive lore, and it's just so precisely made, in my opinion. It looks so good. I mean, but also graphics-wise, yeah, New World. New World is pretty good.
True.
New World is pretty damn good. I mean, I really liked New World. The only thing that actually put me off in New World was the questing. That was too repetitive. Yeah, the gameplay, as you said.
Yeah, we were gonna get to the gameplay later. So
that was way too repetitive, so I stopped that. But yeah, I would say New World or Elder Scrolls, in my opinion.
Okay, and if you think about all the other MMOs, what was graphically in the style and let's say how crisp all the textures are, shadows, whatever actually gets into all that graphic pinpoint? What was the worst?
The worst? There's a lot of them, so I gotta think about this one.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I'm a very, very specific guy when it comes to graphic-wise things, right? It needs to be well done. I really don't like boxy stuff. So if there's a head that's not, round, but it's like it has a little point somewhere, or a hand is like this, like a robot, I really hate that, So it has to have at least, some kind of
smooth
normal
textures.
look. Yeah, normal look.
Okay.
So World of Warcraft was one of them at the start. When they first released it, that those graphics were fucking horrendous. But if you look at when they came out, I get
obviously,
it.
I mean, it's 2004.
It's logical. and for me, for example, I really like the graphics that are as close to natural or real. So that's why I loved New World and Elder Scrolls, because it's not as cartoony, let's say that. And for example, maybe I would say like Wildstar, if you remember Wildstar.
Oh boy, you're gonna hit me there. It's cartoony, yeah. Wildstar was
it's-
really
it's-
cartoony.
It's really cartoony. I really didn't like that, but you know, at the quality wise, I would say probably early World of Warcraft, but it's still you know, it's 2004, I think.
Yeah,
when
2004
they started,
was the
right?
release.
So it's kind of logical. I would, you know, put that out. But I don't know, maybe Wildstar. I mean, I liked Wildstar, but I couldn't, you know, play it for long because,
The style.
you know, it's too cartoony for me. It's not, you know, it's not something that I would like in a way. I mean, World of Warcraft is close to that, but
Yeah.
not really. So they kind of play around with the cartoony thing or theme or whatever it is, you know. But it's not as like Wildstar. It's way too much, if you ask me. It needs to be done well, you know. It's just I'm too specific.
Yeah, but I get what you mean. If anyone is actually interested, Wildstar is not online anymore. It got shut down in, I think, 2018 or 17, which
something like
made me tear up. And
Yeah.
that's why I said you're gonna hit me with Wildstar, because I love this game. I really do, but not in a graphics standpoint. If I have to pinpoint the best looking MMO I've ever played, and even though I briefly touched it simply because I did hate the gameplay so much, Black Desert Online is by far the best looking MMO you can play. It's like,
you're right about that.
It's the character creator alone, the amount of options you have for the character creation, the amount of detail, and the world. Then when you actually go into it, it's just beautiful. It's really beautiful, but it is borderline photorealistic. I mean, it's just wow. You're gonna need a really
forgot
good
about
PC.
that one. I actually forgot about Black Desert.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
Black Desert
it's
made
really
the
good.
news when it came out for how good it actually looks, and still does today. And there's actually, I think I got it for free at some point, and they made a remastered edition of that where you can actually turn up the graphics even more. And I have a really good PC, and even my PC was like, "Your buddy, please don't." It's he got really loud at one point, so I was like, okay, just maybe dialed it on. But back in the day, I was still living at my parents' house, and I showed it to my dad, and even my dad was like, that looks really good. Wow. He was kind of impressed. He is a gamer as well, so he got really impressed there. But there are a lot of games that I do like graphics-wise. I mean, one game that you absolutely hate with a passion, I cannot imagine, is Final Fantasy XIV. It does look good. You cannot deny that. It does look good. And it's if you ignore the characters and their oversized swords and weapons in general, for example, if you just look at the environment, it does look really good. And
That's
so
true.
does, for example, Guild Wars 2. Especially if you go into higher places and click on the vistas, when you get a scenic view of, let's say, Lion's Ark, which is the capital of, or like the main city of the game. So it does look really good there. There are a few other games that I really enjoyed in the graphics department, like Rift looked really nice. And I like the unique style of Alots, which is, it went also into more of a cartoony area with its graphics, but it did have that. It looked a bit like Borderlands, at least at some parts, at least, with like the bigger outline of all the textures, which I did enjoy as well. But if I have to think about the worst looking MMO I've ever played, I I mean, MMO is a really broad term. We're just gonna stick to MMORPGs because if you go into MMOs, you have a lot of other really good looking games. So if I just stick to MMORPGs, the worst one, I mean, I couldn't, for the love of God, play RuneScape. I couldn't. Just it did not appeal to me graphics wise.
Oh yeah, I mean, God Almighty, you know, it's just.
And I mean, actually, whatever version of RuneScape, like even the newer RuneScape, I don't like it. It's not really my style.
The same thing for me with you know, it doesn't fit here, but still the same thing that the Minecraft hype. You know, I mean, I understand the game. It's kind of cool, you know, when you build and stuff. I like building a lot, but I can't get over the goddamn cubes. It's just I really hate the graphics, and some people were actually showing me, oh, you can update it. It looks way better.
Yeah, you can.
It's still a goddamn box. You know, it's a better looking box, but it's a box. You know, it's not. You know, it's weird. I don't know.
Just as
this is how you walk. You know, it's kind of, I don't know.
Yeah,
really weird. I mean, Valheim is not the best at the graphics side as well. But, you know, considering the whole storyline and the gameplay and everything else, that's the thing that pulls you in. For me, for example. But, I don't know. I can't stand Minecraft graphics. That's just... I mean, we're in 2022, you know? And that's like it's 1995 or something. You know, it's kind of...
It's the appeal of Minecraft, I guess. It's their own little niche that they're going into, but
that's kind of their own thing. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of people hating on this, but you know.
Oh yeah, we're gonna hit some people there pretty hard with all the other things. But I'm not sure if I actually sent you this. I found a meme where some guy on his laptop is actually playing Minecraft, and he has updated all the graphics. It looks really good. It's still a boxy game, but it looks really good. And he actually starts with his laptop running, and it's really loud, but it's running Minecraft, and he says, I'm gonna show you how ray tracing looks. Then he actually goes outside and shows the ray tracing on Minecraft, and you can hear his laptop going really, really loud, and then it explodes. Because his laptop couldn't handle it. The ray trace, it did look really good, and I did find the original footage of that, and they actually did implement ray tracing with super crisp 4K textures in Minecraft, and it did look good. But I can imagine a laptop exploding there. Not really, it's just gonna shut down, but again, it's not your style.
It's not. Yeah, I kind of don't like that. I mean, that was the turning point in Valheim for me when I came in at the first time. You know, for the first time, Nick Cage actually brought me into the game. I actually didn't know it even existed, but he said, "This game is so good, and you love building. You know, just go for it." It was like, yeah, okay, cool. And I made a character, I went in, and when I started walking around, I was like, man, this game looks like crap.
Yeah.
You know, this is fucking horrible, you know, it's you know what the year is, but this looks horrible, you know. And then we start, and it's like, just give it a little bit of time, try and play it, you know, give it a chance. And I started playing it, and I really liked the building and everything else, and the Nordic style of it in general, and it was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna, you know, swallow it and just go through it. And I really started to like it, which is, there is a possibility I might like Minecraft, but the graphics are, I don't know, I just can't stand those boxes. I just can't go in there and just try it, you know. It's I don't know, I just can't, you know.
I understand.
Yeah.
But since you said that the story keeps you in, and up to this day, a lot more MMOs became more story focused, not really just relying on the story, but put a bigger emphasis on story.
Yeah.
What would be your best pick for an MMORPG story? If you actually ever played one that had a story to mention in the first place.
I mean, the big amount of games of MMORPGs that I played were basically like maybe 3 or 4 days, maybe a week at most, when I tried them. So I didn't I didn't go into the story as much, but considering all that, I mean, WoW is definitely the winner here for me, for example. But I did like the Star Wars thing that we played. I did like that where you have the choices, you have to choose what you're going to be doing, and that kind of implements it down the line, what's going to happen in a way. I kind of liked that's really good. So I would that's probably the first and second pick for me. And definitely Elder Scrolls has a big and deep lore.
Yep.
As far as I know. I didn't get that vibe with New World, right?
Yeah, true.
Which is kind of... I actually don't know what the story there is.
I mean,
what was the story there?
It's an island they're exploring. They just go.
It's
there.
Basically what I picked up from it was basically you're a guy on a ship that got shipwrecked, and you got to an island where there's weird shit going on.
Yeah, that's basically it.
That's basically it, and you have like a lot of factions that you align to, and that's it. It's more of a here's the stuff, here's the weapon, go kill something. It's not.
It felt more like a sandbox MMO because you didn't really have a direction, but at the same time it was still somewhat of a theme park MMO with a direction.
Yeah,
it was kind of it was a weird mixture, not done right, simply because there is a narrative usually driving you in some direction at least. I mean, even though World of Warcraft doesn't really put an emphasis on story, it at least gives you a direction to go to. I mean, the simplest thing would be, let's say, I don't know, Legion. Legion would be a good example of there is a big threat, and you have to deal with it, and you deal with it step by step. If you just look at what you did in the raids, I mean, first of all, you had the Emerald Nightmare coming up, and you handled that, and then all of a sudden, okay, there is, I think the next raid was a Tomb of Sagaris, so that got opened, and you just handled that, and then at the end of Tomb of Sagaris, Argus appeared, and then you just went to Argus and handled shit there. I mean, we're just gonna keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but I'm not gonna put a spoiler tag on a story that came out in, Lord, 2016. I think Legion released in 2000. Yeah, BFA released in 2018. So that's a long time ago. So I'm not gonna put a spoiler tag on there, but I'm not really sure. Is there a game you would consider the worst when it comes to story? Would it be New World in that case?
Yeah,
probably because of the lack of story.
It's the lack of story. Yeah, but considering the World of Warcraft thing, there's still a theme that's going on. It's still a story that's developing, through time. I mean, it's not necessarily that you play it. You play the quests, that are basically progressing you into the timeline, the story, that's going on. But New World, I don't know. I didn't see that. It's basically,
non-existent.
You kill. It's just there's, I don't know what those were called exactly. I forgot, but it's like some kind of zombie kind of thing, going on there.
Yeah.
And it's like, go kill 10 of those. Then you go back, you turn the quest in, and it's like, okay, go back and grab some just from those sheds that the zombies are in. Then you go back, and then it's again, go back and kill 10 of those. It's like it's a repeat, So leveling in that game is a pain in the ass for me. I really hated it.
Yeah,
I mean, if they would implement like different kind of stuff to do, okay, cool. But there's like, I don't know, a couple of quests that you're doing, and you're doing them over and over and over, and it's like, oh god,
You have a lot of stuff to do, but you don't know why you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pointless in a way. It's just, oh, I'm gonna level up. That's basically the only thing why
Yeah.
you're doing it, you know. So they're really lacking there. They have a game that is really well made. The questing is crap. Let's say
Yeah,
that
true.
the story,
Crap.
I don't know. We would say like non-existent, basically. You know, so that's two things that they should look at 100%.
They're actually gonna do
You
that.
know,
If you didn't hear about that, and your world is gonna get an
they will.
Egyptian update.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's good.
that sounds
That's
actually interesting. I mean, a completely new setting. Not sure if how they're gonna implement it. It's like, look, you didn't explore the whole island. There's a whole desert part of the island, and then they're just gonna tuck it together and like, sure, okay, there's a whole desert zone.
that's if they do that, it's basically, you know, a new zone with the same crap.
Probably.
Basically, it's just there's nothing new, you know. Then it's like, why would I go and play? Maybe just go and explore to see how it looks. That's basically the only thing that I would do, you know. It's like if there's like 5 quests that are repeating over and over and over again, I don't want to play it, you know. It's just, why would I? It's a waste of time in a way, you know.
Kind of ironic, actually, if you don't get anything new in New World.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was all the hype when it was, you know,
Yeah.
released and everything. It was oh man, I played that game like a madman at the start, you know. I really liked it. I did the PvP especially. I liked it. I don't know why, but I just liked it.
Yeah, people were
good.
craving a new MMO, and that was their best shot, and Amazon did not really deliver. But anyways, we're digressing here. We're going to talk a lot about New World, but you get to talk about New World. Story points. We're gonna make a lot of people angry with this, Brax. Just so you know. I mean, I'm gonna make people a lot of people angry. If I look at story in an MMORPG, World of Warcraft definitely does not win. I don't like the current narrative. I didn't like the narrative before. There were a few parts that I did like, and I don't like most of it. It's okay. I would say it's average. What I did like story-wise, Star Wars: The Old Republic is really good so far. I recently made a trooper, and the trooper storyline.
Really?
It's like a soldier, basically. It's really cool,
Yeah,
actually.
I know.
I do like the story of the trooper. I did enjoy the story of Guild Wars 2 as well. I wouldn't say it's the best, but I did enjoy it. So, picking my favorite... I mean, there is another game you probably did not hear about. Maybe I mentioned it to you once or twice, but it's called Dungeon Fighter Online. It's somewhat of a 2.5D MMORPG with a really heavy focus on action combat. But I did actually like the story, and I still hate that the story up until I think level 85 or 90 did end in a cliffhanger. I was like, damn it, I want to know how it goes on. I did really like that, but it's definitely not a game that you would say it has an emphasis on story. You really have to read through all the dialogue, and most people just hit spacebar and skip everything, which I do not blame them for, but I did take the time to read through the story, and I did like that. So picking my best is really difficult, since I don't want to judge, for example, a really story-focused game like Star Wars: The Old Republic on just the 2 stories I did so far, and I didn't even complete them. So that is not something I'm comfortable doing. I did complete the story of Guild Wars 2, and it's above average, I guess. It's not really, I wouldn't consider it best. Neither is the story of Dungeon Fighter Online. So Elder Scrolls Online, I did play that a lot, but the main story is shit. I don't like the main story. It's just too predictable, but I did enjoy the side quest lines a lot more. I will always remember how I went into a wedding in Elder Scrolls Online, and the groom was like, "Help me, please." Why? What is going on? They're all demons. They're trying to kill me. Like, okay, sure. who's trying to kill you? My wife! Okay, let's talk to the wife. And indeed she was a demon, and she put an illusion on everything, and people were like eating cake, and they were happy, and they were drinking, and then you actually managed to take the illusion away, and you saw they're eating corpses, they're drinking blood, and I was like, what the fuck? And he's right, he was about to be sacrificed by that demon. I was like, that was a really cool thing. I really did enjoy that.
That's really cool.
I really did enjoy that. But if I have to mention the worst story, and this is where we're gonna get hate, I absolutely despise the story of Final Fantasy XIV. You have no idea what that will imply, but I'm not a hater in general. I really enjoyed the story of Shadowbringers, which is the former expansion. The current one is called Endwalker. I did read through everything up until Shadowbringers. I did not finish Endwalker, but the rest of Endwalker that I didn't get to play, I watched like extensive videos on YouTube where people just go through the cutscenes and just play them. No, it's you go into stories with a certain expectation, especially if you've been following the storyline and you kind of expect things to go in a certain way. Like you get a stance of expectation where you say, okay, this will make me happy. This is what I would want to see, and if you don't see it, well, it doesn't meet your expectations, and you're kind of disappointed. That's what it feels like for me playing Final Fantasy XIV. People, for example, praise the story of Heavensward, and I was like, no, not at all, like not even a little bit. So the thing that drives me from the story, and it's just what makes me say that I don't like it, is a very specific thing. Of course, your personal impression might be completely different, and I agree with that. But for me, it was all the dramatic moments were completely unnecessary and forced. Absolutely not necessary to see certain people die in that moment, or have them sacrifice themselves, or have that person appear and rescue you. All of that did not make any sense to me. Like, Heavensward had a death, and I'm keeping this as vague as possible for spoiler reasons, because people will get really pissed about spoilers in Final Fantasy XIV. That's what I learned from experience. There's a death in there that made me quit the game for at least 4 weeks. I was like, why? Just stop. If you're gonna force emotions, don't do it like that. Just don't force emotions at all. Let them come naturally. Like, I had a lot of people saying that they cried during Shadowbringers. I can agree on that, because Shadowbringers it conveyed emotions a lot better by being more reasonable and more logical, at least. Like, one of the main characters in that storyline had a pretty relatable reason as to why he's doing it. A reason where you, as a normal person with like absolutely no magic or whatever, thinks, yeah, I would do the same. Like, absolutely. Like obviously in that setting you can't, but you understood him because he was human at that point, and when he didn't achieve what he wanted to, you felt like shit. You felt like real shit. The ending of Shadowbringers did hit me really, really hard, but that was done very well through writing. And all the other deaths and people actually not dying, which is a big part of my reason as well, people not dying over the entire expansion or the entire game. Like, how much plot armor can you have? For God's sake. They had this whole drama with Sylvanas, Windrunner, and World of Warcraft not dying, and
yeah.
Why? Just let him die. There's one particular character that you meet at the very beginning of Final Fantasy XIV, and he is still alive. Why? Like, he's the most useless guy out of the entire group you're running with. Like, all the other people are badass, killing half-gods, punching people through stone walls, being super good at, most of the time, super good at what they're doing. And you have this one guy who is just useless. Like, all he does is command you around, and whenever you're fighting with all the other people, it's like, you're gonna you're joining them, and you're gonna take apart something that is way above your level. And every time you meet him and you have to fight with him, it's like you have to rescue him. Great, thank God.
There's always one, you know. There's always one useless guy.
And
I mean, in every MMO.
and they also make a lot of very, very heavy story mistakes that I just thought, why exactly? Like, calling them mistakes might be weird, I guess, because there aren't really mistakes. There's nothing to do right or wrong at that moment, because it's your imagination and your creative writing at that moment. But it wasn't coherent. Like, you have a master spy and probably the most intelligent person in the realm going into a stealth mission to find someone. And they have a very, very big being on the biggest balcony in that castle, imprisoned. It's floating in the air. And you did not realize that it is there until the end of that main storyline, and people were caught by surprise. Like, you can, if you stand in that zone and you haven't completed the story, you can see that thing floating on that castle. And when you actually go into that castle, which is a dungeon, people are like, oh, it's there. Really? Like, really? At least make it invisible or something if you're gonna play that trick. But it was so stupid. Like, a master spy did not see, like, the 25 to 30 meter long being there. How? Like, just how?
That's just bad writing, man.
It is really bad writing. I mean,
and in continuity, you know, I mean, like, inconsistency with the writing, right?
Yeah.
So if you're writing something, there should always be like one point that's always, you know, going along the lines, and it's seen and it's consistent, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm speaking from the filmmaker side of it, right? So there has to be something there. You just can't ignore it, you know, because always there's going to be people asking about that, just like you are, you know, because someone's going to pick it up for sure.
But like I said, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for that, because the story is viewed as one of the best Final Fantasy stories in general, and definitely one of the best, if not the best, MMORPG storyline out there. And I do not agree with it 100%. I still say Shadowbringers is really, really good. I really enjoyed that, and I think it's probably, if I have to pick just that specific part and view it as its own, it's definitely the best MMORPG storyline I've played. But Final Fantasy XIV in general, like the entire story, has it's up and downs. Like, it's not consistently good, for me at least. But don't hate me, it's just my personal opinion. I did enjoy other aspects of the game as well, but I do not think the story as its whole is that great. But nonetheless, people will hate me for it. It wouldn't be the first time that I mentioned that I don't like the story and get really hate for it, like real hate. But yeah, so speaking about other parts of the game, most of the MMORPGs, actually all of them, I can't really think of one that has a focus on something else. The main focus of the game lies on combat. And over the time, there have been two different styles emerging. When like MMORPGs got popular with World of Warcraft and all its clones, tap targeting was the thing. Then came Terra, and Terra implemented the action combat. So over the years we had a lot of games that stuck with the tap targeting, games that were focused on pure action combat, and you had hybrids. So just saying what combat style of which MMORPG did you like best wouldn't do it justice. So this is the first time we have to like make a difference in the combat section, or just the combat section. It's not gameplay in general, because there are other aspects of an MMORPG that can keep people busy. So
I mean,
if you just look at
for me,
combat, tap targeting combat. We go with tap targeting first. What would be the game you enjoyed the most? I can probably guess your answer.
Try. Let's
World of
see.
Warcraft.
Yeah, that's probably the first one. But I really did like New World kind of thing.
That's action combat, actually. I would say I
Yeah.
would categorize New World as more of an action combat thing, and there are a lot of games that did put an emphasis on the action combat instead of tap targeting. So there are a lot of tap targeting games still out there. So
I mean,
I wouldn't just generalize it with just combat, because action combat and tap targeting can feel different. It will feel different, and there are good and bad ones in both those categories. So we're just gonna stick with tap targeting now.
tap targeting, yeah, World of Warcraft.
Probably.
What else is there to say?
I mean, it is really
for
good.
me,
I wouldn't rank it the highest one for myself, simply because it does feel good, but it relies on too many other aspects to feel that good. And that is, for example, your character stats in World of Warcraft. Like, if you haven't done them right, for example, try to play an enhancement shaman in Shadowlands currently with like 2% haste. It feels so horrible. You have to wait so long for your cooldowns. It's just a game that functions on its own in a combat section without like major influences from your character. I think that would be great. So your best is World of Warcraft. Have you played a game where tap targeting is really badly done? Can you think of one?
Oh man, there was a lot of them. I actually more or less I remember the games as how they looked and how they felt. You know, I don't remember the combat as much because, you know, as I said, I didn't put a lot of time and effort into those games as well. It was like maybe a week, you know, and that was it. And I switched back to World of Warcraft usually, and I always came back, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know, the worst. What would be the worst one that I didn't like? The fighting side of it. I don't know. They all kind of felt like the same. It's like copy pasted stuff, more or less. I couldn't actually, you know, choose one that's really bad or something like that. But they felt like very as like you said, when World of Warcraft came out, it's basically like the stuff was copy pasted and tried in other games. So I was like, okay, this is a good thing. Let's use that. Let's make our own kind of game. You know, without a story. But yeah, I couldn't find one that's really janky and weird. You know. But they all felt like they were basically the same stuff. They were like copied from World of Warcraft, more or less.
So, if I look into tap targeting, World of Warcraft definitely feels satisfying once everything else is set up properly. But I wouldn't rank it the best one that I played. That's something you haven't experienced yet is actually, and that really caught me by surprise, the more I leveled in Star Wars The Old Republic, the better it felt. It is a traditional tap target combat system, but all the classes function without the influence of character stats, which is something I really, really appreciate. And they get more and more stuff added that just makes sense. And it is actually a really, really fast tap target combat system. There are a lot of buttons to press, especially if you play classes with a lot of procs in them. But for example, when you subscribe for the first time in Star Wars: The Old Republic, you get this level 70 character boost, and I did use that on Vigilance Guardian just to see how it feels like. And Vigilance Guardian is basically like a melee spec with dots. It's like the lightsaber user, the one with just one lightsaber, and it feels very smooth to play that because it's core dot filler ability, core dot filler ability, core dot filler ability, and that repeats itself over and over and over again. And you have a variety of filler abilities you can use, and they interact with your dots as well. Like, for example, there's an ability, one of the main abilities, like it's not really a core dot, but it's like the core, one of the core abilities that spreads your dots around on every enemy hit. One of the filler dots actually resets the cooldown of another filler ability, and there is a proc built into another filler ability, or you use it as an execute ability. So there's a bit of variety in it, but it all feels very smooth and satisfying to play, simply because, well, you do have to like the animations and the sound effects of it. Obviously, that's purely subjective, but I did like that, and that felt great. But if you just look at it from an objective perspective, it was coherent, it was fluid, and it felt smooth, without me influencing any of the abilities by my character and even the talents, or in Star Wars: The Old Republic they called it utilities. The utilities add something to it. They do not change it drastically, they just add a bonus to it. For example, one of the core dots just gets a bigger AoE. It's nothing special, you just have to press it at the same time all the time in the rotation. It's just an added bonus. So nothing that you do on your character or in your talents, utilities, changes your rotation drastically, at least from my perspective right now, and I have played a couple of classes so far. But that is something I would consider one of the best tap targeting things I've played so far. World of Warcraft is definitely up there, but it's just, I guess, above average. I mean, some things really feel great, others don't. Like, if you're really unlucky, for example, on the rune resets on Frost Death Knight, if you're just really unlucky and you don't get your runic empowerment procs, you just sit there without any runic power and without any runes. It's just, there's nothing you can do about it. If you're really that unlucky, which happens rarely, but it can happen, and it happened to me a couple of times, it's just you just sit there for like 3 or 4 seconds until your runes regenerate and you can start pressing abilities again. So, okay, yeah.
I mean, Star Wars: The Old Republic is really good. Yeah, I kind of liked it, you know. The combat thing is really good, as you said. I mean, you know, enjoyable once you know what you're doing.
True.
Yeah.
Some pinpointing a tap target system that I did not like. There were a lot of games that had a tap targeting system. Most probably, I don't remember most of them anyways. I imagine there was stuff like Perfect World, Forsaken Worlds, like all those Asian MMOs that had a tap target system. It was fine. It got you through the game. It got the job done. But I wouldn't just consider it. It was just average. But something that I will get hate for as well. It's Final Fantasy 14 again. And here's the thing. It wasn't bad. I didn't conceive it as bad as it is right now at first, simply because I started in the base game in patch 2.4. So a lot of classes had a lot of extra abilities. Like I played a Dragoon, for example. A Dragoon had like a dot that got removed in the next expansion just to like reduce the button bloat, I guess. But over time, they gave players more and more abilities. Obviously, you have to give them somewhat. If they level up, it would feel weird if you get a new expansion with like 10 levels to get to level cap. You don't get any new abilities. That's not how it works. But over time, all the classes got so many abilities that the amount of buttons you had to press was just ridiculous. And I tended to just go back to classes that did have a lot less buttons. So, I mean, if I, for example, look at how many buttons Dragoon actually got, it's just... I couldn't play Dragoon after the second expansion, which was called Stormblood. I did play it in Stormblood, but at that point I was like, no, I just don't like it anymore. I went to a class that actually had a lot less buttons, which is Monk, another melee character, and it's the same for tanks as well. I liked the tanks in Final Fantasy XIV, but the amount of buttons, I'm not saying the game is, the combat itself is bad in general. It is satisfying once you get a few more spells than early levels. Like if you say it's like level 60 to like 70 or 80 maybe, at that level range, it feels perfectly fine, but obviously you're lacking traits like passives that influence all the skills. But at that point you kind of feel like, okay, there's a rotation going on, it feels somewhat coherent. That's where I liked it. But the more buttons you get, it's just... For example, just to give you an idea of what I mean with button bloat, since you haven't played Final Fantasy XIV at that level.
I probably won't.
That's something that we will cover as well. The Dark Knight, as a tank, can place down an AoE. And what they did as an ability that you get at level, I think 88 was it? Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was something 86 or 88. You can make that AoE explode and deal more damage, just once. And it has a cooldown of like 90 seconds. So you just place that AoE every, I think, 30 seconds, and you just make it explode every 90 seconds. That's an ability you get for leveling up. It is... People hate that ability. They absolutely despise that ability to make that AoE like pop up and do more damage just once. People were like, why? That's button bloat for me. You have to implement it into your rotation, obviously, because it's damage. And everything in Final Fantasy XIV is driven by damage. Like, funny enough, the tanks are tanks, healers, and DPS are colored. Tanks are blue, healers are green, and DPS are red. And you have the DPSs, of course, and the other two colors are just green and blue DPS. Like, everything is driven by DPS in this game, so obviously you have to press every ability that deals damage to maximize your damage, but
whatever you see.
It's just, it doesn't, I don't like that. I mean, reduce the amount of abilities by just a little bit, so it doesn't change the flow of gameplay, of combat in Final Fantasy XIV, but just make it so that you don't feel like you have to press abilities that don't feel satisfying to press. There are a lot of those spells. A lot of them, there are a lot of abilities that deal really good amount of damage and look really great, but something like that explosion of salted earth, that's what the dot is called, just why? Just doesn't make any sense to me. That's where I would consider that the worst tab targeting system I've played so far, but only for the reason of button bloat. If it wasn't for the button bloat, it would feel good, but just the amount of buttons. I mean, I can't fit all of my abilities of my classes like the tanks or the dragoon on 2 hotbars. Like, it doesn't. I can't. Yeah. Why? It's just too many. Like, imagine you have 2 hotbars at least full with all necessary buttons to press. Buffs, cooldowns in general, and your main rotation. Like, oi! It's just too much. Can't even imagine. Can't even think of a class in World of Warcraft that I had that many abilities on a hotbar. No, I just can't. I mean, you put situational stuff somewhere, but it's not at your main hotbar location.
Trying to think about it, but I can't.
No. I mean, we did play on different levels, obviously. We never really, at least, we never hardcore raided or anything, or did real hardcore progression in World of Warcraft. I did hardcore progression in Heaven's Ward in Final Fantasy XIV.
We tried.
But there I played Monk, so Monk still doesn't have a lot of buttons to press. And
we tried, but yeah, we tried, but it didn't happen.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 more things to cover, and then we're actually running out of time. So we still have a lot to talk about. Action combat. Try to think of action combat. What would have been your best pick for action combat MMORPG, and why?
I mean, action combat in general is very... I mean, it's really fun for me because it implements like a certain point of skill as well.
Yeah, you have to aim.
Like aiming. Yeah, to aim, because I'm notoriously really, really bad at aiming. So whatever I'm playing, like a Warzone kind of game or whatever it is, even in Sea of Thieves when I played it, I was really notorious for not hitting the target in a way. So implementing that kind of thing in an MMO is kind of, it's really cool to me, basically, because it's not just click on the target and, shoot whatever you have. You actually have to aim for it. And in that regard, I really liked, as I said before, New World was really cool for me because you need to aim just like on Warzone, for example, or something, right? So you have to aim in front of him when he runs, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just aim at him and, it still hits when he's on the other side. That doesn't happen. It's just kind of, it was new to me, basically new to me in New World for the first time, and I kind of liked it. It's really cool. So I would say New World. If you ask me for the worst of them, I really would not know because I was just I just tried it on New World and I really goddamn liked it. I mean, it's much more interesting to me, to be honest, than Tab thing, because it implements a little bit more of interesting gameplay, so to speak, for me.
It's more responsive, actually.
More responsive.
You have to react to a lot more.
Yeah, you got to think a little bit more. It's the same thing goes with not just the weapons when you're shooting, but also with the
swings,
handheld stuff. Yeah. So if you're if there's a target in front of you and you just turn weirdly, whatever it is, when you sometimes switch the mouse, right? You miss it. It's not like World of Warcraft. You could be looking here, and the enemy's there, and you're just shooting it somehow. I don't know. You cast a spell and it just goes over there. It's kind of, it's interesting. It was fun still, but I think that the combat thing is much more suited to me in a way. Kind of liked it way more because a little bit more difficulty to play, which is kind of cool.
I think that the combat of New World is actually really good. And the whole being more, demanding would be something really good, especially if you have like the rifle as a weapon or the bow. Those things that require you to aim, actually, that is really, really cool. If I think about an action combat MMORPG, Terra was really good, but wouldn't consider it the best. It was the first one, and it did a really good job implementing it as some sort of a standard to the industry. There are other games that have action combat as well, like a really good one would be Elder Scrolls Online, which has a system like that. Black Desert Online. Black Desert Online, definitely action combat.
I actually forgot about those. Yeah, Yeah, it was a long time.
So to say what's the best one, actually really difficult. I mean, if I go out of my way and name something that I enjoyed the most when it comes to action combat, and not really making a clear definition as to what action combat actually is in an MMORPG. Like most people would think, okay, you have a crosshair and you can miss your abilities. Okay, that's probably it. Often enough, it's also related to like the left and right mouse button being attacks, like light and heavy attacks, or whatever weapon you currently have equipped. Like if you have a rifle, like right mouse button actually makes you zoom down. Those are definitely some key features of an action combat, but like I said, if I would go out of my way, I would say Dungeon Fighter Online has probably the best action combat. It is... You have a lot of abilities on your hotbar, but... And that is actually not a lie, that is really the case. You can also keybind all of the abilities you have on your character to, like, making it as a combo system from fighting games. So, like, if I would press up, down, X, I would do this ability. And if I do left, right, X, I would do that ability. And if I do left, up, down, X, I would do another ability. And if you do it like that, those abilities actually deal more damage. That's how they do it in PvP, because they want to do as much damage as possible. So they don't have any ability on their hotbar. Like I could just press Q and do that ability, but it wouldn't deal as much damage if I would input it with a combo system. And obviously you can miss abilities by just looking away from the enemy. Like I said, it's a 2.5D MMORPG. So you can move up and down and left and right, but you still look at your character from the side. But the amount of abilities you can press, the amount of combos you can do, like you can keep an enemy in the air for as long as you can on your character. You can keep them pinned down, you can do down attacks, you can do aerial attacks. It's really, really good and really satisfying to press, but that is because of two things. First of all, inputting those abilities with that combo system feels really good if it actually pays off. And the second thing is the class fantasy, or at least how they designed all the classes, which is a point that we definitely have to get to in another episode. So I would say that is my favorite for action combat. And the worst one? Difficult. I mean, I'm kind of torn between two games, but for very different reasons. The first one would be Black Desert Online. I mean, I like the graphics. I like the class design, especially where you can pick between very, very different styles of combat between those classes. But the amount of buttons you have to press, it's just overwhelming. I mean, most of the abilities rely on that same combo system that I just explained in Dungeon Fighter Online, but in a lot more hectic way and a lot more. Like, at one point in Dungeon Fighter Online, you have all the abilities, and you can definitely fit all of those abilities on, like, one hotbar. Like, you put your buffs on the second hotbar, you press them once, and that's about it for the entire dungeon, but the rest just fits on one hotbar. In Black Desert Online, that wouldn't be the case. It's a lot of attacks that you can combo together, which makes for satisfying gameplay if you enjoy that. But it would be weird to say that I don't like Final Fantasy XIV for its button bloat and then comment by Black Desert Online for its button bloat. It's just the same thing for me. It's a personal thing, I guess. But I don't like to press a lot of buttons. I want to keep it minimal. Minimal would be a good word to describe what I feel like. And the other game with action combat that I do not like is Elder Scrolls Online. Mainly because it doesn't feel satisfying. Like, there aren't a lot of really action heavy moments in that game. You just stand there and apply dots. and you just go through your hotbars and you aim at the enemy and you win. That's about it. I mean, most of the time there is a lot of really easy content in this game when it comes to like veteran mode, raiding and stuff like that, and going for high scores and speed clears, no death runs, all of that. That's a completely different thing, where a lot more things matter. But in general, it's just not really satisfying combat for me, even though it's action combat. It just feels like not really that. It can be smooth if you take care of all the other things, like your resource management and all of that. But I would never consider the combat of Elder Scrolls Online as one of the things that would keep me playing. Definitely not. It's just not really my thing.
I actually have to download it again. I mean, and try and play it. And I haven't played it for years and years. So I have to try it again. Let's see what's different. Maybe
there's a lot of things different. For example, you can't be killed in a high-level zone anymore because you get automatically scaled to a certain rank, a certain. Okay, there's a max level of 50, and after 50 you get something called champion points, which is like a paragon system from Diablo 3, for example, where you level even further and unlock new skill trees, or like those what's the word I'm looking for? You know, those pictures in the stars have a certain word, and I just forgot it. Like from Skyrim, you remember all those skill trees where like you unlocked stars that made a picture in the sky. That you unlock those as well with those champion ranks in 3 different categories. So you level even further after level 50. But when you create a character and you're still leveling, you're automatically scaled to champion rank 160, and everything around you is also that rank. So you always deal that damage because the scaling stops after 160, and you just progress your own character even further. It's a bit weird to explain right now, but you can't be under-leveled anymore. That's one thing.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, a lot of things have changed. The last time I played it was last year, so yeah. I guess I'm somewhat up to date, at least with the major things, so that's how it works. You will definitely feel a difference if you download it now. But
I mean, there's a new class as well, as I remember, right?
No, there are more. There's the Warden and the Necromancer.
Oh, that's the one that I'm interested in, the Necromancer.
Yeah, the Necromancer.
That's the one.
So, last thing we have to cover for combat, and last thing for the episode as well, there's a hybrid. There are hybrids out there that mix tap targeting and action combat, and to say that we could make a ranking or say what's good and what's bad is really difficult because there aren't a lot of games that have that kind of combat style.
Which ones are there, actually?
The most prominent one would be Guild Wars 2. That is
the one that I didn't play.
Yeah, okay. The one that you did not play. Exactly. But I will make you play it simply because we still have a lot to talk about that. Because I did tell you that there is a lot of Norse references in that game, especially since there is an entire race that you can play with that is referencing Vikings.
True, it's just hard for me to get into it because I don't know, it doesn't look the way that's interesting to me. Let's say that. Yeah,
I can get that, but I will still make you play through the entire Norn storyline. It's level 20, up to level 20. I mean, come on, it's level 20, you can do that.
I mean, you got me to play Star Wars. True. You know, the old Republic, which is something that I actually avoided for a very long time. But you know, I said, screw it, let's do it.
I mean, it's free. Why not try it? Okay, but the most prominent one would be Guild Wars 2. There are other games. Another one you have played as well would be WildStar.
WildStar. Yeah, but sadly you can't get that one.
Yeah. If I just compare those two, I would say
Yeah.
Wildstar is the better one. Definitely. I did.
Oh,
Wildstar was, combat-wise, Wildstar was a really, really great game. Due to a multiple of things that it made, that it got right. I still think the class fantasy of some of the classes is really well done. Some aspects of the combat are really well done. I mean, just the mobility alone, you can dodge, you can double jump, which is not a key feature in every MMO. Some things of that are even restricted to certain classes. For example, World of Warcraft has the double jump and the gliding only in the Demon Hunter. So that's about it. Guild Wars 2 only has the dodging. The double jump is not a thing there. So other action MMOs, most of the action MMOs have a dodge ability. Like Elder Scrolls you can dodge in Black Desert Online, you can dodge in Terra. That's I don't know. Dodging in Terra is actually restricted to the warrior, or at least that's one prominent class there, because it was one of the first. The warrior was the leather-wearing, dual wielding tanking thingy. He can at least roll dodge. That's one thing. Like, okay, or the role in World of Warcraft is restricted to the monk. That's another thing. So yeah, the mobility aspect of Wildstar was really, really great, and they implemented that in raids. I did do a lot of raiding there as well, and there was a mechanic where the boss just sits on the outside of the arena and just shoots laser walls at you, and you have to double jump at the correct time to dodge those laser walls. That was really great. I mean, that was one way of implementing your key mobility feature into an actual raid mechanic. You did, when you got hit, you got one shot. That's about it. So yeah, you had to double jump. So, but it wasn't difficult to press spacebar twice. But okay, yeah, I think Wildstar has the best hybrid combat system.
I really liked Wildstar. I liked it. I mean, I stopped playing it because it's too cartoony, as I said. But it was, all in all, it was very fun.
Yeah, the combat in Wildstar was actually really great. I mean, it had a point of skill in it as well, because you had to aim your telegraphs, and you could miss. You could absolutely miss with every ability if you did not aim at the enemy. But at the same time, you had your key features of a tap targeting with like a hotbar, an extensive hotbar. Like Elder Scrolls Online, for example, you only have like 5 abilities on one hotbar. In Wildstar, you had like I think you had 8. And you could still tap target, and certain abilities would definitely hit the enemy because they were just aimed at the enemy. Like you had a shot at the guns as the spell slinger there. If you just not looked at the enemy, okay, that's your fault, I guess. But that's a typical thing in all the other tap targeting things as well. Like if you don't look at the enemy, at least in his direction, you're gonna get the arrow target not in line of sight. So not really.
It's not like World of Warcraft, where you don't have to look at the enemy.
I mean, you do have to. I mean, there's line of sighting as well.
It has to be in front of you. You know, you can't throw stuff back. You know, it has to be in front of you. But it's still, as I said, like this, and you're just chucking spells. And
I mean, if you're
not even looking at it.
If your character was able to see the enemy, it would work. But
maybe,
it really depended on your camera as well. Like you could zoom out your camera and be like, okay, I'm just gonna trick the game a little bit. That works as well. But yeah, I think if I go with hybrid combat style, Wildstar would be definitely my top pick.
Yeah, and
I still miss that game. Like no joke, if a big company would come out right now and say, we're gonna redo Wildstar or do Wildstar 2 whatever, I would drop every single game immediately and be like, Wildstar. That's it. Like seriously, it was. I love that game.
If I really, really learn Unreal Engine, I mean, everything's possible. You know, you're gonna need a lot of people for that, but you know, everything's possible. Let's say.
True. But do you well, you agree with Wildstar then, I guess, because
Yeah,
there aren't a lot of
100%.
hybrid games out there, at least not to my knowledge. There are a few that borderline on it. I mean, something like a more recent example that you definitely did not play because you don't like the setting, but it's an Asian setting, is Sword of the Legends Online. It's somewhat borderline hybrid, but it still feels like tap targeting, kind of. It's really weird.
What was Allods? I actually forgot.
Allods is
more
definitely
like
tap targeting. Definitely. It's like a pure WoW clone with its own settings. Like basically what it sets apart is the setting. But combat-wise, it's definitely just WoW.
It was cool. It was funny as well.
Definitely was.
Which is you know, and I think it's still up. Not
It
sure,
is.
but
It is. That is true. That is true.
You can still play. You can still play it. So you know, if nobody ever heard about it, go try it. It's a really cool game, actually. You know?
They have two factions as well. On the light side, let's call it the Republic, the Alliance, whatever you want to call it, just to have a similar name for it. You can play a character that is made out of 3 characters, and they all look like hamsters, and you can design each hamster individually, and they actually do really funny animations. Like if you are a warrior or something, they give the sword to the one, they stack on top of each other, and they give the sword to the one on top, and then he does the slash, and then they disperse again. Like they build towers. It is really, really funny. Or when you cast spells, they dance around the one casting the spell, and it's really funny to watch.
It was really fun to play, but you know, I couldn't replace World of Warcraft then, you know, so maybe I could try it now. Maybe it's gonna be a little bit more of a connection.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it was fun. I really laughed my ass off when I played that game. Basically, you know, it was that kind of fun.
Yeah, it really was. But just to end the episode, just think about what else we have to go through. We just covered story, graphics, and combat. We still have classes, other activities. We can look at PvE endgame, PvP endgame. It's just so much to talk about, actually. So we definitely have to do another episode on that. But I like that. It's actually really cool to get some input, and let's see what all the other people that are listening and watching on whatever platform actually would determine as their best or worst pick in the categories. Like I said, and I'm mentally prepared for it. Probably gonna get a lot of hate for what I said about Final Fantasy XIV.
Possibly. Yeah.
I mean, you haven't even mentioned what you feel like about Final Fantasy XIV, and that's what I get you.
You don't wanna throw the blame on me.
No, but we can definitely throw the blame at you in the next episode. That is clear, because then we're going to talk about all the other things that you do not like about certain games, not just Final Fantasy XIV in itself.
I mean, Final Fantasy XIV seems okay to me, but it's not. I hate the massive swords and the weird.
It's anime vibes,
you know,
basically.
It's the anime vibe. It just kills the mood for me. I don't know. There's a lot of people that loves anime around, you know, around the world. I just hate it. I just can't stand seeing it. You know, I don't know why. It just, the running animations and everything else is just so weird to me. It's like unnatural and weird. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain it, but I just don't like it. I never got into anime. I tried watching it. I actually watched one anime movie because it's The Witcher.
Yeah,
and it's
you
on
mentioned
Netflix. That's the only one I watched, and I love The Witcher. I'm like one of the, you know,
you're a huge fan of it.
I'm a huge fan of The Witcher. You know, huge fan. I actually read the books and everything, but. And it was extremely hard for me to watch an anime movie on The Witcher, which is kind of, I don't know, it's not the typical style that you would see in a Witcher kind of thing, you know, Witcher kind of setting. So kind of didn't fit in my opinion, but you know, the story is really good and that's all it is. I wish they would make a movie of that. Basically it would be way better to watch than an anime. But yeah, I just can't stand anime. I don't know why. I can't watch it.
That's fine. Not everyone has to like everything.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But
Everybody has their own opinion, you know. And
true,
likes
true.
whatever.
Let's see if that comes. Let's see if people are accepting that statement as well when they listen to all the Final Fantasy stuff. Like I said, you do not know how bad it can get. But I'm not just gonna trying to badmouth any Final Fantasy 14 player. I still like the game in very different aspects, and it's still I can still acknowledge how great of a game it can be, but you don't have to like everything, and whenever someone doesn't like something, just accept it as it is. Maybe try to... Maybe... There's a really good quote on that, from... We're gonna end it after that. From a German rapper who did an interview, and he explained how he got approached by a lot of teenagers asking him what nationality he is. He isn't German, but he raps in German, and he says, I don't care if you ask me what nationality I am. I'm the opposite of what you want to hear. Is that what you want as an answer? He doesn't care if you are Jewish, Arab, Israeli. It doesn't matter. He sits with you at the table. He drinks with you. He eats with you. He laughs with you. He talks to you. If he doesn't care what religion you are. If he has a different religion than you have, he explains his ways to you. If he can touch your heart, fine. If he can't, fine as well. I mean, he doesn't have to convince you to like or dislike something. It's not his duty, it's not his responsibility to do that. He just has to accept that there is something else existing in the world.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't have the drive to change everything to his liking. And I hope that's the same when it comes to Final Fantasy 14 players listening to this. I'm not bad-mouthing the game. I still like the game in a lot of aspects, but if I have a different opinion than you have on the topics we just talked about, you can agree to disagree. You can try to explain your way of thinking. I will read it, and like I said, as a quote, if you touch my heart, fine. But if you don't, fine as well. It's not bad, it's not good, just as neutral as it can be. I have my opinion, you have yours. As Brax has his opinion about anime movies, and it's not bad that he doesn't like them, it's just that's how he feels. He's not a bad person just because he doesn't like anime.
It's just on that note, on the anime note, it's not something that I would hold like a nationality kind of thing, you know. I actually really like Asian culture, and I really love it, you know, and everything that comes from that part of the world. I really love it. I just hate anime. You know, I just dislike it. I really dislike it. So it's not something that I would, put on a nationality kind of type of level.
I mean, it was just a quote from that guy. It's literally, it's like a short clip from that interview where he specifically states how he dislikes being questioned about his nationality because it doesn't matter to him. And people put a lot of emphasis on seeing him in this way for whatever reason and trying to convince other people that whatever nationality they're from or whatever country they're from is the best, or whatever religion they believe in is the best. That's what he was talking about in that interview, and that's something he doesn't like, simply because it's too oppressing to him. It's just not his business. Just mind your own business and go in your way and accept that there are different opinions in the world. That's about it.
On that note, if you comment negative or positive, everything is gonna help the algorithm. So
that's the most
neutral,
emotionless way of looking at it. Just
Yeah, I mean,
pure functioning robot. I don't care what it is.
it's
Just comment.
you know, whatever it is, I'll take every opinion, negative or positive. You know,
It's
with
feedback.
negative opinions, whatever it is, maybe you voice something that I didn't think about, for example, or Ko didn't think about, so that makes us think about stuff, or maybe
True.
reevaluate stuff. So that's also good. If it's a negative comment, just don't go into slurs and and
Yeah,
insults or
that's
whatever
weird.
it is.
Keep it above the board, like. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their own opinion, and we are extremely open to,
True.
hearing yours on everything, and debating that. Actually, trying to understand a little bit more, maybe broaden our own mindset, or thinking,
True.
whatever it is. So it's kind of cool. Whatever you write. Basically, so
Indeed.
that the algorithm thing was just a little bit of a joke in a way. But
That's the
it's also
businessman
true.
talking.
It's yeah, that's the businessman talking. It's also true, but it was just like in a way. As I said, it's not bad or good. That you're saying negative stuff about everything. We're gonna take every comment as a comment, as something that we need to look into, maybe think about stuff if we perceived it wrongly, whatever it is. We are all learning along the way, in our life. So whatever you're going to be writing there or commenting or whatever it is, it's definitely going to help us either way, algorithm wise or thinking wise, whatever it is.
Good lord, we got really inspirational for the last 6-7 minutes here. I mean,
Sorry about that. I mean, that's the way I am. I just fall into stuff like
yeah,
that.
Brax, the inspirational speaker.
I'm actually more of a storyteller if I start doing stuff like I'm planning on doing on YouTube. So it's gonna be fun.
All right, folks.
Listening to all this.
We're gonna have to cut it here. We still have a lot
Yeah.
to talk about in the next episode. So, thank you for... oh, good lord, I can't even talk anymore. 1.5 hours already. Thank you
Yeah.
all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. We're hoping for any comment, good or bad, to help the algorithm and to give you to have some feedback. To have some feedback as well. And we'll see each other in the next episode. Until then, take care. Bye.
Yeah.